Good morning, chat. What are you guys doing outside the door? You guys gonna come into the office? Hey, guys, get in here. Come on. Let's stop screwing around, okay? Uh, Sorry about that. I took an extra couple minutes getting my stuff ready for the stream and oh, whoops, sorry. There's two. There we go. I took an extra couple minutes getting ready for the stream and it was a little bit late. Wait, why am I putting in my AirPods? But I'm here now. Forgive me. Um, yeah, okay, we need to pin a message. Good morning, Wanta. Oh, it's rainy there? Well, it's snowy here. Good morning, Arvin. Good morning, MD. No, I don't even know if MD is here anymore. MD was here like 45 minutes ago. All right, let's get this message pinned real quick. So we'll say, good morning. We are going to drink some coffee, have some conversation, work on part 1 of day 2 of Advent of Code 2025. If you are in here, try commands for more context. Alright, let's pin that guy. And then, let's see. We need to double check Discord really quick. Just make sure everything's hunky-dory over there. Yep, the stream posted. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, members. We need to check the member list really quick. Stephen, 3 days ago, our national currency lost 3% of its value in a single day. Oh my goodness. So let me ask you, Arvin, is given those circumstances, do you guys actively think about trying to store your earnings in a currency other than your national currency? Like, do you try to store what you earn in US dollars? Or maybe some sort of like dollar stable cryptocurrency or something? I mean, how do you guys approach that? I mean, that's crazy. You effectively just took a 3% pay cut, right? So that's yeah, I mean, that's pretty unbelievable. How do you navigate that? I mean, I guess the same thing could happen here in the United States, you know. I mean, it could happen to any currency really, but I mean, that's just pretty wild, man. I'm really sorry about that. I wish I wish there was something I could do, man. Super shitty. I can commiserate with you, but that's about it. I did solve on a bright note, not to gloss over your situation, Arvin, but on a bright note, I did solve part 2 of day 1 of Advent of Code. So let's go to Advent of Code 2025. Let's just do a quick recap of what I ended up doing for those that might be interested. Anonymous, I'm currently also on day 2, part 1. I've spent most of my day making utils and expanding my input abstraction. Okay, well then it's if you spent most of your day on it, then it's unlikely I'm gonna finish it during this stream, but we're gonna try. Arvin, yes, even clueless average Joe has learned hedging against inflation. It's primarily gold. Interesting. Okay, yeah. Something, you gotta do something, right? Yeah, that's awful, dude. That is the worst. Good morning, Abhi. How are you? You doing well? Okay, so let me open up NeoVim really quick. And no, I have not even begun on the actual solution. Well then, who knows where I'm gonna get? I mean, I'm sure gonna try. So if I do go test day one, I think everything should pass. Just utils and stuff. God is evil according to strict scripture. Gold is evil according to scripture. Which scripture? Is that in the Bible? I don't feel like I've ever heard that before. Or at least I don't feel like I've heard that in gold is evil according to the Bible. Or are you talking about some other kind of scripture? I mean, there's definitely something in the Bible about the love of money. Yeah, there's something in the Bible about that. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy 6:10. But I don't think that's what we're talking about here. We're just talking about trying to keep yourself from taking a 3% pay cut on some random day. Anonymous. I decided to make map air, reduce, and filter functions since I'm lazy. I don't think implementing those functions means you're lazy. That probably means you're just smart. Yeah. The programmer's laziness do more or less. Yeah, I think programmers tend to have I think we like to think of it as laziness. I think programmers have more of a bent towards a dislike for inefficiency, you know? And I think that goes beyond just programmers. I think that's a very fundamental like attribute of a lot of people who are great engineers. They just have a disdain for things that require additional steps, additional work, more than what's needed, right? They kind of have an obsession with design and simplicity and elegance and completeness, and you know what I mean? There's kind of a whole personality, I feel like, trait around that. Let's see, Abhi. But investing in gold reduces capital and mobility and has long-term consequences on society. Well, hold on, back up. Back up. You said gold was evil according to scripture. I asked what scripture you were talking about. I still haven't heard you say what scripture you're talking about. And then second off, I don't think investing in gold necessarily has long-term consequences. I mean, it's just another store of value, right? A hedge against inflation. I mean, that's basically anything. I mean, you could hedge it. You could hedge against inflation using gold. You could hedge against inflation using equities. I mean, there's lots of things you could hedge inflation with. It doesn't necessarily have to be gold. And I'm not sure gold limits capital mobility terribly much these days because there's all kinds of fancy financial products that allow you to get in and out of it pretty easily, almost as easily as like an ETF. Abhi Gita. What is Gita? I've never heard of that. Is that a scripture? Gita. Oh, it's a Hindu scripture. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Bhagavad. The Bhagavad Gita. I've heard of that. Yeah, I don't necessarily know if I mean, no shade at the Gita, but I just don't necessarily know if I believe that. Stephen, I always think since programming skill internationally marketable, local programmers should ask for more than 20% raise when inflation of the past year was like 60%. You should definitely consider that when you're talking to your company. I mean, you should always try to fight for the most raise you can get. But your company's up against inflation as well, so I don't know. My attitude largely on that is like, you can definitely negotiate for more money at your current place, but I think a lot of times if you really want a significant raise, you're going to have to job hop. That's just, that to me, that seems, if you want a 25, a 30, a 35% raise, you're more than likely going to have to job hop. Or at the very least, you're going to have to go out to the market and get an offer for that and bring it back and negotiate internally. Like, I don't think any company that you're currently working for is willingly going to be like, oh, you're doing such a good job at your existing work, let me give you a third more salary. It's kind of a hard sell. Good morning, Santo. Also, good morning. No, Santo. That was what I saw. Good morning, Santo. Sorry, I thought I'd missed somebody else. Random question: is inflation good? Well, man, that's a question that can keep economists studying for years. So there's some people that make that question their whole life's work, and I'm not an economist. I think logically there is some good to it, right? Some amount of inflation, 2%, 3%, right? You can buffer it. It drives the value and the cost of things up, which theoretically should in turn drive up the quality of living, and the earnings that people make should also inflate. But then too much of it can be destructive, right? So it's like, I don't know. They're like I said, there's people that have dedicated their whole life to studying those kinds of questions. What do I know? I'm just a guy who struggles to answer admin code problems. Arvin, job hopping is the quickest way to normalize your path to the maximum possible for your role or skill is job hopping. Yeah, that's what I see. It's not that I've really done that a terribly amount. Like, I've only had I guess you'd call it, I've had 2 corporate jobs, right? I've had lots of other jobs, but probably like 2 corporate jobs. I've had multiple roles at the one. I've worked for 2 companies. I've had multiple roles at one company since kind of being in like the corporate setting. So I really haven't executed very well in the job hopping over the last 10 years. But when I talk to my friends and my coworkers and my network, it seems like that's the way to do it. So it's very anecdotal. And I mean, my largest raise in all of this time came through that, right? So that's how I got my largest raise, was by going out to the market and looking for something and then bringing that offer back and negotiating. I mean, it's just business. It's 4:30 p.m. here, and it's Santos. Oh, sorry, Santos. Sorry. There any nickname idea? People have been calling me Santo all the time. I'm sorry, man. I'll call you Santos. That's my bad. You got through day 1? I did get through day 1. See, Api. So before we jump into day 2, let's just cover what I ended up doing for day 1 real quick. It's just business. It really is, man. It really is. The minute you take your feelings out of it and you start thinking as if you're the business owner, all of a sudden everything makes sense. Not that you necessarily agree with it, but all of a sudden it suddenly makes sense why people do what they do. I'm now like Meteor. Is there any sign when I should change my current job? To me, there's really like only a few different reasons, like, and they're pretty simplistic reasons. Like, I think one of the number one reasons I would probably change a job is if I felt like the company was doing something shady or something that I might get caught up in that could negatively impact or complicate me personally. Like if I know there's some shady shit going on here and I'm being asked to do some stuff I don't really feel comfortable with, that would probably be a reason to get out. If my manager was really poor or like selfish, right? If my manager didn't really have like a servant minded approach to leadership, I'd probably consider leaving or moving on. I think who you work for, like in terms of who your direct manager is like really important to like your day-to-day happiness and your long-term success somewhere. I think having somebody that's your manager who's gonna be a champion for you, who's gonna speak your name in rooms full of opportunity, who's gonna protect you from political bullshit, who's gonna make room for you to do your best work. That type of a manager is like invaluable. So if you find yourself in a position where you don't have someone like that, that's probably a worthwhile opportunity to start looking for something else. If the work you're doing you're no longer interested in, or you don't like it, you don't feel like it's challenging, you don't feel like you're growing, there's another reason to leave. And then I think the fourth reason is money, right? It's like you want to make more money and you're frustrated because you feel like you don't make enough doing what you do. Well, the answer is not to sit around and bitch about that. The answer is to start looking for something that pays you more. So I guess those are the four things that come to mind. Like shady shit, bad manager, unchallenging or uninteresting work, desire to make more money. And make more money could be have better benefits, have better work-life balance, whatever the compensation for you is, however you define that for yourself. But I think those are all valid, like, indicators. Good morning, I Love Lamp. How are you? We're just getting started. Also, thank you very much for being a member. We appreciate you. All right, so if you were here yesterday, you guys might recall I was really struggling with day 1, part 2, which was basically the only difference between day 1, part 2 and day 1, part 1 was when you turn the dial. So in part 1, when you turn the dial, you only wanted to count zeros when you actually landed on the zero. And then in part 2, you actually wanted to count zeros every time you basically went by a zero, right? So every time you had to correct and you had to turn the dial past zero, they also wanted you to count it. And the edge case that we were so fucked up with was whenever the dial was pointed at zero at the end of a turn, right? So like you can imagine, you turn the dial, it lands on zero. And so in my existing logic, when I would turn the dial and land on zero, we'd count it. But then on the next turn, when we start from zero and we turn it, we were also counting it, right? So it's a double count of that zero. We landed there, we counted it, we started from it and counted it. And I could not figure out I could not figure out a good solution. So really quick, let me show you where I was stuck at. So I saved a branch. Let's see. Get checkout Stephen Freeborn day 1, part 1. This is where I was the other day when we left at the end of yesterday's stream. Most of the logic we were worried about was in the turn. So here's the logic we were trying to use. So we were basically saying, okay, first thing we do is we were trying to like offset whenever we were moving left from zero, we were trying to basically subtract a count for when we were double counting it. And that wasn't working. But essentially the logic of this was you move the dial then you figure out if the dial is beyond the bounds of whatever direction you're going, and then if you have to correct, you bring it back, right? And we also added some logic to check if the value is currently 0, then we were going to increment it. I couldn't, in my brain, I could not figure out a way to migrate this, because essentially my problem was I needed to. So if I'm turning right and I land on 0, right, don't count it. Or I guess a better way to put this is if I'm turning from left and I have to correct, count it. And if I'm turning from right and I have to correct, don't count it. Was basically what I was thinking. It's like I need some way to limit when we count that 0. So I ended up switching to the most brute force solution ever. It's like it's kind of dumb what I ended up doing. So if I check out main again, it's kind of dumb what I ended up doing. So what I ended up doing was I kept a lot of the logic the same, but the only thing I did was instead of having a place where I move a certain amount of the distance, then I do a correction. What I ended up doing was I ended up just having loops where I basically turn the dial one click at a time. So if I'm going left, I turn the dial one click, one click, one click, one click, one. I mean, this is like not very efficient. And then every time I do a click, I check to see, did that click land beyond 0? And if it did, I increment it. Then whenever I'm going left, I always check for 0 first. Then I do my correction, right? So if I landed on 0, and if the value is less than 0, then I do my correction. Then what the thing I did with the down here in the right direction is same idea. I'm changing it by one click, one click, one click, one click. The only difference is I do my correction first, right? So imagine we're turning right and we're already on 0. This is going to cause me to move off 0 and not count it. And then what this is going to do is it means I can land on 0 and it will get counted. So basically restricts that double counting event. I think the real solution to this is not to do a brute force loop approach like this. The real solution is to use some sort of modulo arithmetic, which Pablo posted his solution in our Discord if you're interested in looking at it, but he actually has that math in one of his solutions. So if you're interested in that solution, that more elegant solution, you can go look at one of the threads in our Discord server. But this is where I ended up doing it. So this solves it. It's not terribly efficient, but it solves it. So. All right, now we need to start day 2, part 1. MD, my figure looks the same. Oh, really? Nice. I love LAMP. Do I try NVIDIA Canvas? I've never heard of NVIDIA Canvas. I don't even know what that is. Because I'm now a web dev, C# React, I want to move to DevOps. Should I try to get that position in my company or just try to apply for a different company? I would say it's not an either or. I would say it's a both. Right? There's nothing that says you can't strike up a conversation with the guy in charge of DevOps at your company and kind of start to build a relationship, and hint, maybe I'd be interested in working there for you, and hint, maybe do you have any jobs or some projects that I could do for you to prove that I can do that kind of work. But that also doesn't mean that at the same time you couldn't be looking externally. So you can do both. Yeah, there's nothing, no rules say that you can't be actively looking as both internally and externally. Okay, first things first, let's check out branch. We're gonna solve day to part 1. And then we're going to get, we're going to cd into cmd. We're going to make a directory O2. Excuse me. And then we're going to get both our puzzle input and our problem. So we're going to use the AOC CLI. And instead of 2, we need, or instead of 1, we need 2. This. Booyah. Booyah. Okay, and then we are going to make CD, or actually we can do this all from NeoVim now. Let's go ahead and go into O2, and we'll make a main.go and a main test.go. And then we'll just have a similar setup to our other packages here. So we'll say import testing, and we'll say func solve part 1. This will be a file path. Oops. Test solve part 1. T testing.t. Oh, that's Copilot. I need to turn Copilot off. Vineet, are you going to solve day 3 problems today? No, I'm not. So Vineet, the way I'm doing Advent of Code is I'm actually sticking to the 24 days. I'm just doing one part each day. So basically day 1 part 1, day 1 part 2, day 2 part 1. So I'm just basically stretching out the 12 problems in 24 days. That way I can have the full 24 days of Advent. And I think I think for me personally, it'll end up being much more manageable that way, because I am not the monster that I wish I was at solving these kinds of problems. So no part 3 here today, just part 1, day 2. GitHub.com. O2, like that. This is going to be alias to solution. And then we'll say if, yep, it's fine. Thank you, Copilot. I thought I disabled Copilot. Okay. And then we're going to have package main, and then a function, solve part 1, file path. It's a string. We'll just assume this is an int for now. Might not be an int. Return 0. Good morning, Artwork Studios. How are you? I love LAMP. It's not separately NVIDIA Canvas, and it's built into the installation of NVIDIA Studio, which is kind of a waste of. I have no idea what you're talking about. I wish I knew what you're talking about. I love LAMP, but I don't even know what I love, or what NVIDIA Studio is. So now we'll do go test cmd o2. Okay. Now let's go ahead and figure out what the hell we're supposed to do. Let's figure out what the problem of the day is. Oh man, I'm gonna feel really behind when it's day 12 and I'm only on, like, when it's day. I think when day 12 is released, I'll only be on like day 6 or something like that. I'm not in a race though. Boy, I miss C Sharp on this channel streams. Yeah, me too, Gun Eyes, me too. What are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna? We made a commitment. You know, you say you're gonna do something, that means you do it to the best of your ability. Oh, these numbers look scary. This kind of looks like an input. There was an input to, um, yeah, dude. I mean, our shoes. I miss C Sharp too. I've been writing a lot of C Sharp though, still in like my day-to-day life. But yeah, not much here on stream. We'll get back to it though. We'll get back to it. NVIDIA Studio is now a very GPU-intensive video editing toolkit app. I only want NVIDIA Canvas in that case, which is like Photoshop, except you can make a beach and drawing and okay. All right. I love Lamp. I love that you're excited about NVIDIA, but I'm probably just gonna not talk to you about that stuff and then just focus on this. So if you guys want to talk about unrelated things to advent of code, that's fine. I will probably kind of ignore it so I can focus on the problem. Okay, let's read it. You get inside, take the elevator to its only other stop, the gift shop. Thank you for visiting the North Pole. Gleefully exclaims a nearby sign. You aren't sure who is even allowed to visit the North Pole, but you know you can access the lobby through here, and from there, you can access the rest of the North Pole base. As you make your way through the surprisingly extensive selection, one of the clerks recognizes you and asks for your help. Oh, wonderful. Just what we all want. To be recognized and asked for help. As it turns out, one of the younger elves was playing on a gift shop computer and managed to add a whole bunch of valid product IDs to their gift shop database. Surely it would be no trouble for you to identify the invalid product IDs for them, right? They've been checked most of the product ID ranges already. They've even checked most of the product ID ranges already. They only have a few product ID ranges, your puzzle input, that you'll need to check for an example. There was a problem last year that gave ranges like this, and if I remember right, originally the part 1, the brute force solution was useful, but then on part 2 they made the ranges absurdly large and the brute force solution wouldn't work anymore. So I'm wondering, yeah, this might be like an optimization challenge. Okay. The ID ranges are wrapped here for legibility in your input, but they are on. I cannot talk. In your input, they appear on a single long string. The ranges are separated by commas. Each range gives its first ID and the last ID separated by a dash. Since the young elf was just doing silly patterns, you can find the invalid IDs by looking for any ID which is made only of some sequence of digits repeated twice. So 55, 6464, 1213 are all invalid IDs. None of the numbers have leading zeros. 0101 isn't an ID at all. 101 is a valid ID that you would ignore. Hold on. 101 is a yeah, okay. So basically, invalid IDs have to be of even length, right? Because you can't have an uneven invalid ID. So that's one constraint for when we're checking for invalid IDs. And then basically, if you cut it in half, they just need to be equivalent to one another. Your job is to find all the invalid IDs that appear in the given ranges. In the above example, 11 to 22 has 2 invalid IDs, 11 and 22. 95 has 1 invalid ID. This has 1 invalid ID. Okay, so like right off the top of my head, the initial solution I'm thinking of is, you parse your inputs and then you basically just iterate through the ranges, right? So you go 11, then you go 12, 13, 14, and you basically check every number in a range. And you basically, again, you just say, hey, is the current number I'm on, is it even? If it's not even, I can bail out because it's not going to be an invalid ID. If I split the current number in half and I compare those two halves, are they equivalent? If so, that's an invalid ID. So there's a brute force approach, but I don't think that's gonna work probably on part 2, or it's gonna be super slow on part 2 if I had to imagine. Pablo said this was really hard. So I'm wondering if even it doesn't work with this input. Like, I wonder if this won't even work for that type of approach. Last year, what was it? It was like Advent of Code 2024. There was like a range intersection problem where you had to basically use the intersection of the ranges. Was it day 5 maybe? Let me see. I don't think this is exactly the same type of problem, but I think that they're going to hit us with the exact type of challenge where they're like, hey, okay, you can implement a brute source algorithm to do this relatively easily, but as soon as we give you larger inputs, you're going to be in trouble. I can't remember what day it was. I just remember it being really hard. I remember being traumatized by it. Alright. Okay, so let's just focus on the first. There's a couple problems we have to solve right out off the bat that just have to do with parsing, right? So we just need to be able to parse these two ranges. So let's try to focus on that. And not get too overwhelmed. And the example, well, we need to get our example input. Copy. Example.txt. Now this should all be on one line. Because they said our actual input was all in one line. So if we look at our actual input, yeah, it's all in one line. Okay. So we just need to... we actually just need to read all the text, don't we? So how do we read all the text in a file in Go? I don't know how to do that, I don't think. So if I do os.read file, what does that do? That returns me bytes and an error. So if I do file path and I do bytes error like this, and so then if I say if read error is not nil, then just return 0. Otherwise, I think all I have to do to turn a bytes into a string in Go is I just have to say print line, and then I just have to legitimately cast it from bytes to a string. So if we do go test cmdo2, yeah, there's all our text. Cool. So that's how we'll get our text in. And then we need to get our ranges. So our ranges is just going to be a slice of strings to start with. So we'll say range. I'm going to do stir ranges. Is going to be a slice of strings. And then we're going to loop. Oh, actually, hold on. We can do this through the strings package. So we can say strings.split. And we can split on string bytes. So we can say dot, whoops, we can say split on a comma. And I'm actually going to turn that into a constant, so we'll say const range, I guess individual separator character is this guy. Okay, so now we should have for stir for range and whoops. Yes, whoops. I swear I know how to write Go. Only for about 30 days though. And then let's just format, let's print these so we can make sure we're getting what we would expect. Replace split with split sequence? What's the difference? Split sequence returns an iterator over all of substrings S separated by sep. The iterator yields the same strings that would be returned by split, but without constructing a slice. Oh, okay. So it like yields it. It's kind of like a an enumerable in C#. Okay, cool. I like it. So let's not print here. And now we should have all our ranges being printed. All right, we're making progress. I like it. Okay, now in order to iterate over these ranges, we need to split these apart into a lower bound and an upper bound. And we need to then, yeah, so we're gonna want to take them from strings to numbers, and then when we do the check for invalid ID, we're gonna go from number to string, because I think it'll be much easier to check if they're equivalent that way by working with a string. So we'll do, you know, now that I'm looking at the numbers printed like that, the math probably is not terribly complicated. Okay, hear me out. So in the case of like 95, right? In order for 90, so let's say we're at 95, for example. In order for 95 to produce an invalid ID, this end range would need to go up to 4 digits, right? So there's some math that I think we could do that instead of looping through and checking every single one, I think we could just check to see what numbers could possibly produce invalid IDs. I'm not sure what that math would be, but I think there's math there to make this not so dumb. I'm not 100% certain what that math would be. I'd have to get a Scala draw out and think about it. Okay, so we got our ranges. What do we want to do now? So now what we want to do is we want to essentially convert our string ranges into I'm gonna create a struct for this. So I'm gonna do like type struct. And I'm gonna call this not. I wish I could stop writing bad code. Or I wish I could stop writing the wrong syntax. So type range is a struct that has a start int and an end int. Should we make these int 64 though? How big are these numbers? These numbers can be, that's 3, so that's 1 billion. Max value of int in Go. It's like 2 million, isn't it? 2 billion? Oh no. No, yeah, this is like 2 billion. So we probably should use int 64 just for safety, because we don't know actually what the size will end up being. So we'll do int 64, int 64. Close. And then for each of the ranges, we basically want to create a corresponding strongly typed range like this. So we're going to say R, or parts, is equal to R dot split at the dash. So I'm going to say const range separator character like this, dash, and then we should be able to say start is going to be equal to stir convert dot parse int, and we're going to put parts 0, and then we have to specify base 10, and then we have to specify the size, which is 64, like that. And then we're just going to ignore the errors. We're going to pretend like everything parses. We'll do the same thing with end, only end will be this guy. And then we'll say range is going to be equal to a new range with a start field set to start and an end field set to end. And then we'll do ranges dot append range like that. And then let's just loop over and print them all out. So we'll say for RNG of range over ranges format.println RNG. Cool. All right, so we have our ranges. We have them strongly typed objects that we should be able to use to iterate. And now what we'll want to do is for each of these ranges, we'll want to iterate over from start to end. And as we're going through the start to end, we'll want to do our invalid check is what we'll want to do. I'm going to declare a total up here, and then I'm going to return that total down here. Oops, return total. And then I'm going to pause and check in on chat. I was watching your YouTube shorts for the past month. I'm really impressed with how much you progressed in Go. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I mean, a lot of it has to do with just those resources and big help to chat. I mean, chat was super helpful with getting me up to speed. So yeah, Go has been fun to learn. I think my next programming language I would like to learn is Rust. So I don't know if I'll do that on stream. I don't know if people are interested in watching me learn another language after I just learned a language. So I might take a break from learning languages on stream for a little bit and do some actual projects. But yeah, it's always fun learning new stuff, especially when you learn a language that's pretty different than the ones you already know. Good morning, Zahir. Hi, Steven. What's up? I was solving this part this morning in C#, but I'm stuck now. Dang, dude. Okay, well, that doesn't bode well for me. I'll probably get stuck too, but yeah. I mean, I think the important thing to remember with AOC is when you feel stuck, that's okay. And sometimes it makes sense when you feel stuck to just take a break. Like yesterday when I got stuck and frustrated, I got off stream, I went upstairs, got a cup of coffee, said good morning, came back downstairs, and that was kind of, I think, stepping away from it for even just those few minutes was the kind of break in my thinking that I needed to look at things from a new perspective. I think it's just so easy to get like locked in, and then you're having an issue and you like hyperfixate on the issue, and you sort of lose the forest for the tree. So being stuck's totally normal. Who here can help my forsaken Python? Not I, sir, not I. Imagine coding with Times New Roman as font. Yeah, that would be kind of painful. You could do it. It just wouldn't be as nice as like a mono font. Good morning, Tao. How are you? Wilo Gamer Pro. Next programming with Scratch? Probably not. I mean, I appreciate what Scratch is, right? But yeah, it's just not. Not for me. Not for me. All right, so let's. Okay, so basically for every range, we're gonna have a loop, right? So for every range, we have 4 s is going to be equal to range.start. Then, so this is where the off by 1 errors can be tricky, right? Because we want to look at the first value in the range. We also want to look at the last value in the range. So range.start, then while s, and actually we shouldn't do, let's do 4, we'll declare an ID. ID will start at range.start, and then while ID is less than or equal to range.end, we will increment our ID. So this means let's do format print line, and let's just print out the ID. So this is where the brute force thing, you can see very clearly this is not the most intelligent probably solution, right? So but let's just do it for one of the ranges. So let's do if let's see, if I does not equal 0, just continue. So we're just going to look at one just to make sure we're printing all the numbers that we would expect. So the first range is 11 to 22. So yeah, we have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So this is where now inside here, inside this range, is where we're going to add our check for invalid IDs. So inside here, check for invalid IDs. Now, again, remember, I'm going to write my notes down because I think I think there's a way to do this differently. Let me write some notes here before we get too carried away with the current solution. So day 2 part 1. Brute force solution is basically saying is generating all possible IDs and then asking if invalid ID. I think there's a different way. I think we can invert this. So only identify those values which could produce an invalid ID. AKA use math. Hashtag big brain. I don't know what the math is, but there's some relationship. There's some relationship to the fact that if I have the number 9, right? If I have the number 9, then the only way I can produce a repeating sequence of that is if the range that it's in, so the range needs to go to 9, 9. Right? The end of the range needs to go to 9, 9. And that's something we can know beforehand. And then same thing with like 1, 2, 3. If I have the number 1, 2, 3, the end of the range needs to go to what would it be? It needs to go to at least 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? It needs to go to at least to the end. So it's like it's almost like twice that number's digits. Or almost, it's almost actually what it is. It's 10 to the power of whatever the digit length is, right? So 10, like 10 to the first is yeah, it's almost like this. It's almost it's 9 times 10 to the first plus 9, right? And then it's like, then the question becomes, does this fall within range? I don't know. I'm going to solve it brute force. I'm going to try to solve it brute force. It might not work depending on the input. And if I can solve it brute force, then we'll try to see if we can't refactor it to use math. Because I think this is something we can do. Because I think the same thing would hold true for the other one, right? So 1, 2, 3 times 10 to the third exponent. So this would be 1,000, right? So that would make this 1, 2, 3, 0, 0, 0, and then add 123 to it. Same question. Does this fall within the range? But I still have to go through every number. So maybe that doesn't help actually. Yeah, I'm not sure that actually helps. I really should do more leak code. You last. It's super exciting to see you write Go rather than C#. Oh yeah? That's funny because somebody earlier said, I really miss C# on your strings. Let's see. Sometimes speaking about helps when stuck. Oh, 100%. Yeah, talking out loud. I think that's actually one of the hidden secrets of streaming yourself coding is when you're streaming while you're coding, you kind of force yourself to like talk out loud. And as you're talking while you're writing code, it's kind of helping you like realize whatever your train of thought is. It's actually very helpful. Like it's a very helpful skill for interviews. I don't know how many of you have like done interviews, but a lot of times in those technical parts of an interview, they want you to like talk while you're also trying to implement the solution. But so it's actually kind of a good skill to practice. Okay. So when is an invalid? When is an ID invalid? So if the ID has an odd length, no, if ID has, if an ID has an odd length, we can ignore or put another way, it is valid. And then if we get past that, if the two halves of the ID are equal, if the two halves of the ID are not equal, also valid. So yeah, so we're gonna invert the logic so that we don't have to nest. So we don't just, I think it'll make it a little bit cleaner. So we can say, so the first thing we do is we say, so we can say if good job, Artwork Studios. That's awesome, dude. Justin Reyes. Python is just better. Huh. Really? I mean, I know how to write Python, but I kind of avoid it like the plague. I don't want to write it. It's never been my cup of tea. If you make me do it, I will do it. But if you give me an option, I'm probably going to pick TypeScript or C# or Go now. You're very low. Well, it's time to start troubleshooting. All right, so I'm not sure how you convert a number back into a string. Can you just cast it? So hold on, let me see. If I just do format.println and I do string ID like that, conversion from int64 to string yields a string of root, not a string of digits. Okay, yeah, so that's what I thought. So that's okay. So then do I do int convert or stir convert dot parse append int the string form of the integer I as generated? Format int returns the string representation of an I in the base given. So if I do this, I base 10. Let's see. I mean, I guess I can just do a formatted string, can't I? That would get me what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be. Let's see. And then can I get the length of this? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try this. We'll see if this works. I don't really know if this is the right API that I should be using, but... so we're going to need the ID dir, which is going to be equal to this thing. Let's see, vi parens. And then we'll delete that. So we'll say if the length of ID stir mod 2 does not equal 0, then we can continue, right? So if it's even, we need an even number. So this is testing if it's odd, because even a number that's even divisible by 2, if you divide a number by 2 and there's nothing left over, then it's even. So if that's not the case, then we can continue. This has odd length. Okay, and then we need to get the two halves. So half, or first half, and second half. Right? So then how do we do that? So first half is going to be a slice of we also need the midpoint, right? So we need, let's see, midpoint is going to be equal to the length. So let's do ID length. That of ID length. And then if we do ID length minus 1 divided by 2. And we need to do this let's see, so if I have 0, 1, 2, 3, right, so these are my indexes, but I have a length of 4, so the midpoint is going to be 1, right? So if I do, or we're going to treat the midpoint as 1. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter. We can account for it either way. So I'm just going to do divide by 2. And so that would mean the midpoint is 2 here. So we have an ID length of 4, divide by 2, midpoint is 2. So the first half is going to be from the start to the midpoint. ID stir. Sorry, chat, I'm not trying to ignore. I see you guys moving there in the corner of my eye. I don't mean to ignore you guys. I wrote Python for years, but now I'm using Golang for 2 to 3 years. I must say code is way more resistant to errors. I think, though, that's a very common experience that whenever you go from a dynamic language to a static language. Like, there's just so many trivial errors that you catch through static typing. It's really, really a value add, right? Like, I don't know, like develop a small script in JavaScript and develop a small script in TypeScript, and you almost all the time stub your toes on small little things in the JavaScript version that the TypeScript version would have pointed out to you in your IDE way ahead of time. But I get it. Some people just like their, some people like their duck typing, right? And that's fine. You can like your duck typing. We're all allowed to like the things we like. And then the second half needs to go from midpoint to the end, I think. So in this case, let's just think about this. In this case, the first half is going to go from 0 to 2, and the end is always not inclusive. So we won't actually get the second index here, right? We'll just get 0 and 1. And then the ID string, the second half will take from 2 to 3. So I think that's right. I think, famous last words, I think that's right. This should work. And then if the first half does not equal the second half, we can continue as well. Otherwise, these are not repeated sequences. Okay, so then if we reach this point, then we can assume we have actually about invalid ID, because it's an invalid ID that has an even length, and the two halves of that string are equal to each other. So this is where we'll do plus plus. I think that might get us at least some ways of the way there. I am Ron Burgundy. Whenever somebody makes a statement that sounds like a question, I think of Anchorman. So adding up all the invalid IDs in this example produces this. Oh, so we don't just count the total, we're adding. Okay, whoops. My bad. So this is what we expect, which let's throw some underscores in there to make it a little bit more readable. What is that? That's like 1 billion. Okay. And then this, we're going to actually return int 64. And instead of this, we're going to do total plus equals ID. Oh, yeah, total needs to be explicitly declared as an int 64. Oh, and we also need to not just do the first range. Okay, let's give it a run. See what happens. Oh, this needs to be an int 64. That's actually one thing about Go that I'm not. I mean, that's not really a Go thing. That's just an integer thing. Like, I hate having to think about, should I use an int? Should I, like in C#, should I use an int? Should I use a float? Should I use a decimal? Should I use a long? I really wish sometimes, like, I don't know, you compiler, you be smart and figure it out. Which I'm guessing that's a very hard problem to solve. Hey, let's go. Okay, so let's try it on the real input and see if it works. Test solve part 1 with actual just with input. Also, I know I could do this in a table test, but just, you know, I decided that I'm going to do them in separate tests, and I'm sticking to it. So all we know is this, we're going to start this at -1. And I'm guessing this is going to take a lot more time. The ranges are probably much bigger. Oh, that was actually really fast. Okay. So let's see if that's the answer. That's not the right answer. Your answer is too low. Gosh dang it. Alright, I think it's time to make some coffee, and then we'll come back and figure out why we're so low. We basically have the same issue that our Work Studio has. So we'll say if result is less than, yeah, it's less than this. Less than or equal to. We know we have an error. T dot error F. Results %D is too low. Man, I hate it when solutions work on the example input but don't work on the actual input. I hate that. I'm actually going to say minimum or expected. I'm going to do expected minimum. Man, that really sucks. I was feeling really hopeful about that. All right, let's make some coffee before my other camera, I'm using a phone as my other camera, and so I need to probably go plug it in, make sure it doesn't die. Let's also throw some underscores in here. Okay, I'm gonna run it one more time. It's gonna be the same. Okay, it's too low. I'll have to figure this out. Good morning, Born to Shine. Good to see you. Thanks for being a member. Justin Reyes, you can't make your code automatically know what the data type should be. Yeah, but for numbers, I kind of feel like I wish they could find a way, or just always use the biggest number. I don't know. I hate having to think about like, how large do I expect this number to be that this property is going to hold? I don't fucking know. All right, I'm gonna go set up the coffee station. I'll be right back. Give me one sec. Yeah, quick. Yeah, exactly that. No, we're gonna take a quick break to drink some coffee and steal our nerves. Hope you're well today. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Yeah, life's good. No complaints. Got some snow on the ground outside. We got some coffee we're gonna make. Got some code. Got some problems to solve. It's good, man. Life's good. You should make a template code that does that and just throw it in your projects. Yeah, just converts all of the data types that are declared as an int to make them the largest thing they can be. Sounds dangerous. Sounds dangerous. Okay, I'm gonna switch to the other camera. We're gonna see if this works. All right, let's see if that works now. Is my voice any louder? Yeah, there we go. Huh. I don't know why sometimes it comes through my headphones initially and sometimes it doesn't. In any event, we're going to make some coffee. Please ignore my bedhead. Oh, I need my phone to look at chat too. Bah, bah, bah. Here we go. All right, here we go. Let's get some water. Get the water heated up. Man, I really can't believe that didn't work on the first try. It should be relatively easy to debug because we should be able to print the IDs that we think are duplicates. Let's see, 1, 2, this is the 4th day. No, this is the 3rd day. All right, what kind of coffee are we having today? I don't actually know. Okay, water's heating up. I think it's a Kenyan coffee, if I remember right. We've had lots of African coffees. Yeah, it's a Kenyan coffee. The flavor notes are gala apple, brown sugar, almond, and juicy. I love that last one. This is a juicy coffee. Good to see you, I Love Lamb. Glad you found your way back to the stream. We're making coffee right now. We're taking a break from. Also, this is my new mug I got. Like, guys, like the purple, the pink purple. I was trying to do something that was like .NET colored, but they don't actually make one that's like .NET colored. So this was the closest I could get. New here, just got into programming. Are these debug challenges? No, they're kind of like LeetCode, but they're holiday themed. If you go to the description of my stream, there should be a link in there for Advent of Code, and you can read all about it. But it's basically like holiday themed LeetCode challenges. They're pretty fun. It's become a part of my holiday traditions the last 3 years. Dude, all these coffees are like super, almost like fruity, florally. I wonder if we're going to get some dark coffees, though, like some darkly roasted ones. Oh, dude, you thought you found a virus? I don't have any wood to knock on, but knock on wood, I haven't had a virus on a PC in a very long time. I mean, Windows Defender does, I mean, it's a much different world than it used to be, though, in the PC world. Oh, and I've been saying this every morning, but the company that this Advent, this coffee Advent calendar came from. This company is called Onyx Coffee. I linked to them in the description. I also put the coffee in the description of the video, so if you are ever curious and want to try one of these yourself, you can buy it there. I don't work like I'm not sponsored by the brand or have any kind of like brand deal or anything. It's just a coffee company I enjoy. They're based in Northwest Arkansas, and they have a pretty cool brand, and their coffee is fantastic. I don't know. I think you should shill for the people you like. You know, like Free Code Camp. Like I'll always shill for Free Code Camp. All right, now there's nothing left to do but wait. Wait and let it brew. We could do some overhead presses while we wait. Dude, there was so much snap, crackle, and pop in my shoulder just now. Nothing left to do but wait. This is honestly when you need a coffee to drink while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. Kirk, have you looked into affiliating? You mean with the coffee company or just affiliate marketing in general? If you're talking about affiliate marketing in general, no, I'm not really I'm not particularly interested in that scene. But the coffee company, no, I have not ever talked to them about that. I did send them a thank you note just for making the calendar in general, but I haven't actually. I mean, I figure they're not going to want to sponsor someone who has a tiny little channel like mine. But maybe it does. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. I mean, the nice thing about doing YouTube for fun is I don't really have a need to make money from it. I can just do it as much or as little as I want to and pay my bills from my day job. Which is nice. You know what they say, like you shouldn't turn every hobby into a profession, you know? Like that can be a mistake. Yes, we are making coffee, our work studio. Coffee. I wonder what I did wrong with that freaking input. All right, it is time. Here we go. Kirk, you hit my radar, so your reach might not be as little as you think. Well, I'm glad I hit your radar, but I feel like my channel is just a baby channel. It's just a little channel. This is like a toddler channel. I mean, up until January of 2025, I only had like 20 subscribers on my whole channel. And I kind of always thought it would be like that. And that's after 8 years of posting a lot of content. Granted, the quality of that content obviously is subjective, but you know, I figured I would just stay with no subscribers for the rest of my YouTube career. And then this year I was like, well, actually what started me making content again on YouTube was last year during Advent of Code, I started streaming on Twitch, but Twitch was like dead. There was like nobody there. So then I started streaming on YouTube, and that's really, and so then I started streaming all my Advent of Code on YouTube and uploading the streams from Twitch to YouTube. And that's really what started me making programming and coding content on this channel. But it's nice to find other people who enjoy that kind of content. Bro has the coffee set up now. It looks good. Oh, thanks, man. We moved into this bigger house. We moved from an apartment to a house with a basement, and honestly, it's too much space for our family, but it's nice to be able to use this basement area to do this for Advent. I don't know if we'll always keep the coffee making as part of the stream, but while we're working through this this coffee Advent calendar, we will. All right. It's time to go back and figure out what we fucked up with our solution. But at least we get to do it with some coffee. Come on, chat. Back to the office. Come on, chat. Get in here. Stop screwing around. We got work to do. You guys got to get back in here. I'm not going to wait all day. Now I sound like I'm talking to my kids. Come on, chat. Come on. Let's go. And we're back. And we're back. Oh, crap. Actually, hold on. Somehow I misplaced my, whoops. Somehow I misplaced my headphone case. I felt the force pull me immensely to the camera. Like a force choke. All right, so I guess the first thing I'm going to do, which I don't really know if this is realistic to do this, is I'm just going to try to print out all of the IDs that we're counting as valid to see if I see something that looks off. So I'm just going to do format.println. I'm just going to print the ID. Excuse me. Actually, because we're too low. We're too low. So that means we're counting things out that shouldn't be counted out. So let's see if we can. So let's do, instead of print line, let's do printf, and let's do invalid. And we said this was invalid because non-repeated sequence. So then we'll do %d and we'll pass in our ID. Yeah. I wonder if this is off. So let's do invalid repeated sequence. This is the ID. And then we'll do let's do 1, and this will be %s. So this is the first half, and then we'll do 2 %s. That's the second half. So first half, second half. I'm wondering if that's probably more than likely where we're screwed this up at. And then let's do format invalid as odd length. As odd length. And then we'll just print these out. These are all the places where we're excluding stuff, and our exclusion is the problem because we're too low, right? Because if we were including too many invalid IDs, our total would be too high. So something's wrong with our filter logic here. Steven should strap a camera to a toy car and let chat control it. That actually would be kind of funny. You know how people make you, well, I mean, I make you pay to do text to speech. I think it's $1. If you super chat $1, you can do text to speech. But have you seen any of those other streamers who like they'll set up like stuff in the background that people can like X number of bits or X number of, super chat or whatever lets you shoot something out of the cannon behind them, or or like a jump scare or things like that. I always think that's a fun way to create like interactivity in the stream. It's also a good way for the streamers to generate revenue for themselves, which, I mean, no shade here. Oh my goodness, what have I done? Okay, so let's do let's do, we need to add first of all, we need to add new lines, and then second off, we're just gonna, let's put it in a output file so that we can scroll through it a little bit better. So we'll do that, and then let's only run this one. Coffee's good. They said juicy. I don't really get juicy, but I do get apple. Definitely apple. Gala apple. I don't know if it's specifically a Gala apple, but the food scientist in me. So when I was working as a food scientist, one of the things we had to do a lot of was we had to do a lot of sensory testing, right? We did a lot of my work was, or a good portion of the projects I worked on was doing ingredient replacements, right? So you find an ingredient that you can swap out for an existing ingredient, but the ingredient may be cheaper, or it's from a vendor that can sell it to you for cheaper. Or sometimes like government regulations would force you to have to swap out ingredients. And so a lot of my work was about matching a new formula to an old formula. And so I did a lot of sensory science work, a lot of making samples, have people try the samples, then doing statistics to figure out, can people tell a statistically significant difference between the two things. And so whenever I hear people say whenever I hear people talk about wines, or I hear people talk about coffee flavor tasting, I always think if I put you in a room with a red light and put the brewed coffee in the same cup, I wonder how accurately you could actually denote which coffee is which. I think the accuracy would go down a lot in blind tasting. I think it would go down a lot more than what people would believe. So we want to do go test, but we only want to run this guy. Whoops, not that guy. We only want to run this one. So we'll yank that to our system clipboard. We'll paste that there, and then we'll just redirect this to output.txt. This is definitely taking a long time to run, which definitely makes me think that this is going to be an optimization challenge. Part 2 is going to have some crazy wild ranges to it. So let's do Notepad. Okay. So now that we have our new lines here, so I'm just going to try to scan through here, and if I see anything that looks like it should be a repeated sequence but isn't. Or is being marked as it isn't. So you can see there's a lot of wasted checks, right? Like 92 can only, like, you know, 92, if we're checking that number, can only really be 9292. Man, there's a lot here, isn't there? There's a lot of... I don't know if I'm be able to... Okay, this might not be the way to do it. Holy shit. Yeah, the scale of the scale of this is beyond anything I can check by hand. Okay, let's just make sure, let's reread the problem, make sure I'm doing the math right. Your job is to find all of the invalid IDs that appear in the given ranges. Well... Yeah, no worries, dude. Do your thing. Can you quickly review what would make it valid versus invalid? For sure I can. One sec. Let's rubber duck this. So, an invalid number... So an invalid ID is any number that is a repeated sequence. So, for example... let's see. Let's go back to her. So, for example... they said 101 is not an invalid ID, right? Now, 1010 is an invalid ID, right? Because it's 10 twice. They also said 11 is an invalid ID, right? So technically, you have to have an even length. You can't have a repeated sequence without... So here's an example of all the... So these two are invalid, 11 and 22. 99. 1010. Here's another one. Right? So these are all... They all have to be even numbers. Or even length. Sorry, not even numbers. Even length. And then the two halves need to be equivalent to each other. And I'm guessing there's no white space in there, right? There's not going to be. And I'm pretty sure I'm iterating correctly. Anonymous, couldn't there be different sequences in one ID? I guess there could, but the constraints that all the examples they're showing seem like we're constrained to half. That's the pattern they're looking for. They're not looking for like 11, 11, 11, 11. They're looking for they're looking for what would that be? Not a mirror, but you basically can cut them in half and stick the other on top of the, stick it on top of the other one and they're equal. And looking at everything I'm finding, I think the logic looks right, but there's numbers in here apparently that I'm excluding that I shouldn't be. I mean, this is a pretty large number. What is this number size? This is 18 billion. Somebody just joined my Discord, and I approved you. I think it was Wanta that joined just now. Int 64 max number. Yeah, so int 64 is way large enough to hold that value. So we're not having any kind of like loss. Actually, I wonder what happens when you exceed the max value in Go. Wonder if it panics or if it just wraps around. Multiple. Yeah, I don't know, Anonymous. If you can think of a test case, if you can think of a concrete example of what you have in mind, I'm happy to run it as a test. Well, shit, guys. This is another example of part 2, day 1, where like we get pretty much the solution, and then now we're stuck on it not working on the input. So it works for the example, it doesn't work for the input. So there's a nasty edge case in here somewhere. How the hell do I figure out what that edge case is? I have no idea. Because there's just so many values. I think there's an optimization that we could work on, but I hate to work on the optimization without just the brute force working. Because I won't know if my optimization is I won't know if I broke anything. Anonymous overflow, no panic. Ah, nice. Okay, good to know. I don't think I've ever actually done that myself. Let's see. It wouldn't really matter if there's empty, right? And as far as my iterations go, I guess let's make sure I am. Let's just read my code again. So I'm just gonna step over my code. So the first thing we do is read the file. Then we split it on commas, and we basically parse it into ranges. Then we loop over the ranges, and we go from the start to the end. Every time we just increment the ID. We convert the ID to a string. And then we get the length of that string. Then we say, well, if the length of the ID, if the number of digits in the ID is odd, then it can't have a repeated sequence. Otherwise, we split the string into a first half and a second half. Oh, this is wrong, right? No, that's right, because we're basically, my logic is a little inverted. I'm basically trying to rule out valid IDs. Or do I have it back? Do I have my understanding of the problem backwards? Maybe I'm confused. But if I'm confused, why did it work for the example, right? That's the part that doesn't make sense. So your job is to find all the invalid IDs. Then sum them. So I think my understanding is right. I'm trying to identify the repeated sequences. If it's not a repeated sequence, then I don't need to sum it. Fuck. Excuse me. I don't really know. The thing I'm stuck on is, given the scale of the ranges and the number of numbers, I'm not sure how to debug it. That's the thing. That's the problem. There's just there's too many to go through number by. I mean, there's not too many. I could spend all day going through that file and looking at every single number. I guess let's make sure that I'm low. So I guess let's make sure that my ranges are what I expect them to be. That's probably at least a worthwhile double check, right? So we'll just say format we'll do format.println range. Just make sure we're getting the ranges out that we would expect. Probably a worthwhile exercise. No, reopen file. Okay, so these are our ranges. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 39, 40, 41. So I have 41 ranges. And then let's look at the input file. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Yeah, 41. So yeah, so I'm getting all the right ranges. Okay. So it looks like my parsing logic is correct. Damn. I don't know, guys. I'm stuck. I thought today would go better than yesterday. And so far it's not. But I'm stuck. I fixed it. My problem was that I was just adding one part to the total. I wish that was my problem. Are we adding the valid or invalid in your code? We are adding the Oh shit. No, hold on. No, we're adding the invalid. So every number we print here should be a repeated sequence. I mean, I guess we can try that. Basically, every number that we get at this point should be a repeated sequence. So let's remove that. So this should be, we should have an invalid ID that has even num of digits and repeated sequence. So that's my expectation at this point. So let's try to run this again. Which it looks like that's the case. I mean, there should be a lot fewer numbers, right? There should be fewer of these. The problem is apparently we're missing some. Make this a little bigger. I wonder if this counts. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it does. I think one of their examples is like that. Invalid is odd length. Yeah. Yep. Invalid is odd length, which we don't have. So far, I haven't seen any odd length. They're all even. So this is 4 digits, 6 digits, 4 digits, 2 digits, 4 digits. What is that? 8 digits, 6 digits. That's a crazy number right there. Hold on. I think I deleted all of those. Oh yeah, you're right. That was That was backwards. So this is valid. Yeah, you're 100% right. This should have said valid. This should have said valid ID. Sorry guys, that's not confusing at all. Yeah. And then this is invalid. But there's just, the thing is, like, printing this. Did you check if first number is 0? No, but is that an actual case? I don't think that can even be a case, right? That's not even in there. None of the numbers have leading zeros. Yeah, none of the numbers have leading zeros. So we don't even have to worry about that. It's something has me stuck, and it's silly, and it's probably not very intellectually interesting. And when I figure out what it is, it's really gonna bug the shit out. I feel like this should be the right answer, but it's not. It is not the right answer. If you're stuck, you're using the full input data. There are also some general... Okay, let's make sure I have the full input. So I'm just going to copy this. And I'm just going to make sure, because I did use the CLI tool to download the input. So let's just make sure I'm using the right input. Go run test. See what happens here. No, it's the same value. It's the same value. Dude, this is not bode well for the rest of the month. Can you print the invalid so we can see the number pattern? Oh yeah, for sure. So let's do that. Invalid. %D. Whoops, nope, not there. Here. And throw a new line in there. If I can't get this to work, I guess I'm just gonna go to the I guess I'm just gonna try to figure out the math. Maybe the math will yield better results than this, but it seems like this should work. Okay. So there's invalid. There's our first invalid. Which I think makes sense. Right? Because we're at 94. The first leading digits are 94. Oh, whoops, hold on. The first digits are 91. So the first invalid, or the first invalid ID, since we started in a 4-digit range, the first invalid ID should be 9191. Which it is. Then 9292 should be 9292, right? So this is where the math actually becomes more apparent, right? Because basically we don't need to go over all of these intermediate values, really. Like we can just figure out, oh, your half of that is 92. Okay, well you just need to figure out, can 92, 92 fit in your range? And so then once we get 93, 93, like that should be the pattern forever. It's just 94, 94. 95, 95. 96, 96. Okay, I almost feel like now that I'm seeing that play out, I think I can actually do the math. Like it's literally take the length, split it in half, get the first digits, get the first half of the digits, then multiply it times 10 raised to the power of whatever this length is, right? Or I guess raised to whatever the length of this is. And then say, okay, does 97, 97 fit in this current range? So then if there should be nothing, everything here should be valid because it's an odd number of digits. I mean, everything should be valid, sorry. If I said differently. Then we get to 895. 895 shouldn't be 895. 895. Where's 895? Oh, yeah. So 895 can't ever have a valid because it started at 94, 94. It'd have to start below 895 over here on the second half. Let's see, 896. Dude, there's so many numbers. Yeah, there we go. 896. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. What am I doing wrong? I have no idea. I put my parsing of ranges in the coding challenge. Honestly, it's cursed. Nice. Yeah, I think my parsing of the ranges is fine. Like I don't think my logic is I don't think the problem lies there. I think my problem lies somewhere in here. Like maybe the format is maybe this is not the right thing to use for Go. Like I don't know. Let me see. Maybe I should be using a formatted string. Go how to convert int to string. Let's see. String convert it OAI. Using format printf. Okay, that would work. By converting or when needing for converting int64 values or when needing to specify a different base. Base 10. Okay, well this is what I'm doing. So this should be valid. Maybe I'll try something. I'm gonna try something. I'm so stuck that it's like I might as well try something. But let's just try a formatted string. So we'll say format.sprint sprint f ID. See what the number is. Oh my god, there's so many values, so many lines. How do I get to the bottom of the file? Oh my god, I'm gonna be scrolling forever. Yeah, I don't, the print statements aren't getting me anything because there's nothing, there's too much data there. And that's the same value. It doesn't matter. So what I was doing earlier was fine from an int to an anonymous, just confirm that. So basically, just to restate the problem, we are too low, which means either here or here we are excluding IDs that should be in the range. Let's see. Now, what we're doing is we're saying for each range, so for each range, loop over the range, right? So for each range, loop over the range. We start our loop at the start value, and we end our loop at the range in value. And then we always increment our ID value. I don't know, what do? You just stare at this thing till it becomes apparent? Yeah, I mean, this is where in past years I think I need to go to the Reddit threads, because whatever the problem is, I can't find a path forward. We should have an invalid ID. An invalid ID has these characteristics. It has an even number of digits, and the first set of digits equals the second set. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, what's up, Hans the dude? Good to see you, man. Appreciate the well wishes. Very kind of you. AC Scott the First. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? We're on the struggle bus a little bit this morning. We have about 30 minutes, 45 minutes left of stream today, and we cannot figure out what Steven did wrong in this problem. Okay, I'm going to do something really quick again just to double check myself. So again, I'm just suspicious that there's something I'm not doing right with the inputs or the ranges or something. Because my logic in my loop just looks right. Maybe Gemini can. Gemini probably can figure it out. I mean, honestly, I mean, it probably could answer this problem in a one shot. I would have to guess. But I'm trying to avoid having to, I don't want to call it cheat, 'cause it's not really cheat. If you get stuck, you're stuck. You know, it's better to figure out what your gap in understanding or knowledge was than not. But if I can, I'd like to try to unstick myself. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to print the range, and I'm also going to print the string, just to make sure that the numbers I get in the structured data also equal what I'm getting from the text. Really quick, just as a quick gut check. And remember, this works on the example input. That's what's weird, is it works on the example input, but it doesn't work with the problem input. So let's do a quick scan through here. And that looks right. Yep, I'm parsing this correctly. OMGYD. Thanks for subscribing. Nice username. Okay, that looks right. That looks right. So the parsing looks like it's all correct. I guess I could, the only other debugging idea I have is to go range by range, right? And just that or just give up and go try to figure out the math, the optimized solution, because there definitely is an optimized solution to this. Just based on all the print statements we were looking at earlier, there's definitely an optimized solution. Write some unit tests. Yeah, I could, but the ranges are some of these ranges are so large that it would take quite a while to generate, I think, by hand the cases. Because basically what the unit test would be is I would want to make sure that between a particular range I find all the invalid IDs. But I mean, this is a pretty big range. What is that? That's what is that? That's 9100. I mean, these are some pretty large ranges. 1952 numbers that I'd have to go through by hand and validate what invalid IDs I would expect to find there. And that's just not feasible. I mean, at that point, we're better off just spending our time trying to solve this with math. Oh, hold on. Look at this. See that? That last range is wrong. It's 35, says it goes from 35 to 0, but it should go from 35 to 54. So it is a parsing. So is there, I wonder if there's like a trailing white space on one of these. It's always the fucking white space. It's always fucking white space. Okay, so let's I guess let's create a new array here that's called trimmed parts, because the I wonder if it's on the end of this, or yeah, it's probably on the end of that 54. So let's do instead of doing it here, let's just trim every range. So we'll say trimmed ranges. How do you keep concentrated for days on an issue or challenge? I honestly don't know. At work, I've largely built a brand for being the person who can solve the unsolvable problems, and it's not really because I'm super smart, but I do have this like old school football player mentality of like I just won't give up. Like, have you guys ever seen that clip of Will Smith where he's like, um, if you get on a treadmill and I get on a treadmill, there's only two things that's happening. You're getting off the treadmill before me, or I'm gonna die on the treadmill. That kind of sums up my personality where I just won't give up. Like I will ruin my life. I will either solve the problem or I'll ruin my life trying to solve it, which may not be particularly healthy, but you know, it is what it is. Oh, actually, here we can do this here. We can say r, say strings dot trim space r, like that. Let's rerun this. So I don't really know how I keep concentrated. It's just there's just a particular way I feel like my brain is wired to just not give up. Okay, now we're getting that right range. So yeah, there must have been like a trailing white space. And this number is different. So let's if this was it, bro, like fuck your white space. Also, I copied that from the website. So where's that white space coming from? That's not coming from my file. Is that coming from the way I'm reading the... Fuck your white space, though. Okay, let's try to see if that's the answer. Man, I'm so glad I didn't give up. I was really stuck. Hey! Let's fucking go! Let's go! Here's how I'm feeling right now. Fuck you. White space. You are a bitch. I just want to scream obscenities. I do need that on a t-shirt. We do, yeah. White space, get fucked. Holy crap, man. That is so frustrating. Okay, hold on. I'm not going to look at part 2 yet. Whoopsies. I just didn't mean to do that. Okay, so what was the actual number that we got? I think this was the right number, so let's copy that. Okay, so now that we know what the right number is, let's try to see if we can figure, or actually we only have 15 or 30 minutes, but I wonder if we could start trying to work out what the math solution of this would be. Because I really do think there's a solution here where we can invert the logic we're using to figure out what to do. Right? So, I'm just going to copy this really quick just so that I don't have to fuck with our answer that works. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say solve part 1 with math. And the parsing logic's all the same, which we can abstract all this out into separate classes and stuff. But it's in here where when we have the ranges, this loop can be smarter, basically, than what it is currently. So let's just... I think we still need to... We don't necessarily need to do this. So let's just do that, and we'll do... format.print line. I still can't get over the fact that I fucked it up that bad. I had it solved an hour and a half ago. I had it solved before we made the coffee, aside from the fact that my input, or for whatever reason, my input had a trailing space in it. Which I wonder, I don't think it's my input though. I don't think my input has a trailing space. See? The trailing space is coming from however it's being read into the file. or not, however the file is being read into memory. I don't know where it's coming from, but for whatever reason, okay, so we'll come down here and let's just test the example with math. I'll tell you what though, there's like, my brain right now is like on a dopamine high because I figured it out, you know? Filthy potato. I hyperfixate and need to get that one thing done. Yeah. Yeah, hyperfixation for sure. But particularly, that's a funny name. Solve part 1 with math with example input. Particularly, I hyperfixate on things like this. You know, there's certain things that I don't, that I can let go, but certain stuff like this, I kind of perseverate on it. Creatives, I didn't know you were this chill, Steven. You think I'm chill? That's cool. I mean, I feel like I'm a relatively chill person, although internally, I will tell you guys, internally, I'm pretty, I have a high level of intensity. Like inside, I don't feel that chill. Inside, I feel like, let's go, let's figure this out. Let's like, I feel much more like my internal monologue is much more like a middle linebacker for a football team than it is like a chill guy who drinks coffee at a coffee shop. But that type of intensity doesn't go over super well in the real world. So I've learned to temper it. All right, so right now this is not gonna do, this is gonna break. So if we do this one. So let's try to figure out the math. I think the math looks something like this, right? So I want to look at the input. The input, I think the input kind of restricts us a little bit, or helps a little bit, because the input looks like it's always going from the same number of digit ranges. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 digits. So it looks like we're always looping from the same number of digits. I guess we can check that really quick. Where actually we can just put a check in there for that, right? So we can actually say so let's stop printing the ranges a whole bunch of times. And so I think what we can basically say is we can say start length, or let's do start string, start length, anonymous. I saw part 1 now. Also, let's go. So is the dopamine flowing? Are you like riding the dopamine high? You know, it's just like dumping the neurochemicals into your brain. Your biology is saying, do more of that. That's probably why programming and coding has the people that are in it really, really like it and do a lot of it, right? Is because there's a really tight feedback loop, and on the other side of the feedback, at the end of the loop every time, is a huge dump of dopamine. It's almost like it's like a more deterministic slot machine experience, right? Like a slot machine is a variable reward schedule, right? Every time you pull that lever, you don't necessarily know if you're going to hit or not, but that makes it very, very addictive. Whereas coding and programming is more like a fixed reward schedule, where every time you pull the lever, every time you solve a problem, you're gonna hit the jackpot. So what I'm basically saying is we're all addicts, okay? If you're a programmer or you're a coder, you're basically an addict. Okay, I have 10 minutes to see if I can figure out complex math. Let's see if I can do this. So we're going to do length of percent, or let's do, I'm going to do string stir convert dot format range dot start, and that's a base 10 number. So this is going to be mad though, because this could potentially error. So let's do start stir, and we'll do length. And we're going to ignore the error because we're just going to believe that we know what we're doing. What? Oh, it only returns 1. Okay, and then, so why can't I put that in here? I guess I can. Then we'll do in length. So what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to check if my assumption of the world is correct. My assumption of the world is that every range, we never cross over into another place, another digit place when we're looping, when we're looking at ranges. So if start length does not equal in length, panic. What the fuck happened? Otherwise, we should just, the program should run. So let's see if it does run. Okay, it panicked. So there is a chance that we could cross over digits. Like here. Yep. Okay. So that's not a safe assumption. All right. Okay. So the length is still helpful though. Okay. So let's just assume. Let's assume range.start, right, is 123. I'm just throwing that out. Let's assume range.start is 123. How can we know if the repeated sequence of range 123 is in this range, right? And so we can calculate the repeated sequence. We already saw this pattern. We can calculate this repeated sequence by saying, okay, the repeated sequence of 123 is 123, 123, right? And so the way we calculate that is we say, okay, the length of 123 is 3, right? That's 3 digits. So if we wanted to create a number that's twice this length, what we would do is we would take 10, right? Because we basically want to add 3 zeros on the end of our number. Three places. So we would take 10 and we would raise it to that number of digits, right? So this in this case would be 10 times 10 times 10, right? Which we all know from basic math is 1,000, right? 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 100 is 1,000. Then we take 1,000 and we multiply it by the original number. So 123 times 1,000 gives us this, right? But that's not our repeated sequence. Our repeated sequence is then taking 123 1,000 and adding 123, right? Which gives us 123, 123. Okay. So there's a couple things, I guess, right off the bat is there's a couple things we know. We know that 123 is 6 digits. It's six digits, right? So if the range end I don't know, maybe that's not worth asking the question. I guess at the very least what we can basically say is is 123 less than or equal to range.end, right? And if it is, well then we know we potentially have an invalid digit or an invalid ID in this range. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just rambling now. So how would I then use that to figure out like what would I do? Okay, great, Steven, you know this. Now what? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. What now what? Now that I know that I don't think I still have to iterate, right? Because I still have to look at on the numbers. Let's say if range starts at 123, I still need to then look at 124. And 125 and 126 and 127. The whole point of this is to try to cut down on the numbers I need to look at. Yeah. I'm not, no, it's not, there's something here. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like that math makes sense, right? So basically whatever our start is, or so really quick, hold on. Let me GC these out and let me just loop over. Let me go back to what I was doing. So what I was doing earlier was I was saying ID equals range dot start. And as long as ID is less than or equal to range dot end, ID gets incremented. This is what I was doing earlier, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to cut down on having to hit every single number in that range. And so like to Kirk's point, we can calculate, given this ID, we can figure out the repeated sequence of that ID by doing this. We can say, ID length is equal to the length of stir convert dot format int, and it's a base 10 number. And so we can say the repeated sequence is what? It is the original number, the ID, multiplied by Does Go do exponents? I actually don't know that. So how do we represent, this would be ID or 10 raised to the power of ID length. Like that. Well, no, this is already a, right? This is already an N64. We don't need to cast it, do we? Oh, okay. I guess we do need to cast it. Well, if that's the case, I'm just going to do it up here. That. Okay. So yeah, so this would be our repeated sequence, right? So if we, I'm just going to format dot print line the ID and then the repeated sequence of that ID. But I don't want to go over every single one. Let me just do if I does not equal 0, we'll continue. I mean, I don't think we don't need to do this because I don't even know what I don't even. This is I'm doing this because I think part 2 might be about optimization, but I don't know. We'd have, and I'm trying to avoid looking at the puzzles ahead of the each stream. So if we do go. Hold on. I still have a print statement in there somewhere. Get rid of that. That is confusing. Okay, so that's not doing what I thought it was gonna do. Shahir, thanks for subbing, man. I appreciate it. Schwakir, you do assembly. I do not do assembly. I don't know. I've never written a line of assembly. Okay, so that's not the number I was expecting. So is that not how you do exponent in Go? Go. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna close this so that I don't accidentally dox part 2 for myself. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to use math. So Go exponent. So what's the caret operator in Go? Caret in Go. Why did I not get an AI summary of that? What does the caret symbol in Go do? Maybe it's some sort of bitwise operation or something. Oh yeah, it's a bitwise. We just used that the other day, didn't we? It's bitwise XOR. So we have to use math.pow. That's why we're not getting the right number. So we need to do math dot power. What's pow 10? Returns 10 to the n. Oh, nice. That's exactly what we want. So we want ID length. ID mismatch float 64. Oh, does this want to float? So I need to convert it to float. Sorry, I know I'm at the bottom of the file. No, it returns a float 64. Okay, so we don't need to do this anymore. And then this we need to cast to an int 64 after we compute it. Like that. Okay, let's rerun that. Now we should get repeated sequences. So now we're getting our repeated sequences, right? So now we have a way to generate, given a candidate ID or given a candidate value in a range, do we expect the duplicate to be there, right? Now, this... Okay, hear me out. So this doesn't really help, though, because 11 should be counted as an invalid ID, right? So it's almost like we need to take half of that value and then see if it's in the range. I don't know. You do only C. I don't do any C. I've never written any C before. I think this looks like C because it's Go, and I think Go is supposed to be C-like, but I've never written any Go myself or any C myself. Sweecar, what are you working on? Open source or own program or random shit? We're working on Advent of Code. So there's a link in the description. I'll put it in the chat too. Advent of Code is like holiday themed delete code problems. They're kind of fun if you like that sort of thing. If you're kind of nerdy, and if you like the holidays and you're kind of nerdy and you like to spend your time writing code and you get a huge rush like I did earlier from figuring out things you're stuck on or problems you can't solve, then I think you would enjoy it. It's pretty fun. And the fun part about it too is a lot of people do it. So like if you look around right now on YouTube or Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever you like to hang out online, and you look for Advent of Code, you'll find tons of people that are participating in it. There's a ton of Reddit threads about it. So it's fun to kind of be a part of something during this time of year, just with the holidays and everything. So it's good times. Yeah, I think we need to half whatever the range that we're looking at is. Right now, I am also a beginner trying to do just C 86X all at once. Wow, that's intense. Or you're trying to do JavaScript C and 86. I guess that's assembly with some sort of instruction set for assembly. That's a lot, man. Yeah, I have never had much interest in doing super uber low level programming. I'm sure it's probably interesting and good to know, but I just have it's never called me, But I appreciate those people who know it really, really well, So I think to make this work, we have to change what we're iterating over. I think to make this work. So I think to make this work, we can't iterate over the individual IDs. I think we have to figure out the lengths, right? So if we did in length and start length, what can we say about this? We can basically say these are the lengths of nums we need to look at, right? So let's say if we're looking at a sequence from 95 to 1005, right? Then we need to check two-digit nums, three-digit num. We need to check two-digit nums, and we also need to check three-digit nums, and we also need to check four-digit nums. right? So I think that changes our loop in here. Well, we're definitely going to need this thing. I'm not going to get rid of this. I don't want to lose this math. We definitely need this at some point. I don't know when we need it, but we definitely need it. So this would be our length, or digit length, which is going to be our start length. And while digit length is less than, while digit length is less than or equal to not range.in, but end length, we are going to increment our digit length. So that means we should print, if we print this now, we should say format.print line digit length. So now this should print 2, 3, and 4. That's what this should print. Also, I know I need to go to work, but I feel like I'm onto something. Okay, we only printed 2. Well, that's not what I wanted. Oh, we only printed 2 because... Oh, because our range isn't 95 to 105. It's something else. So... let's also print the range, I guess. Yeah, let's print the range. So format.println, whatever the range we are currently working on. Now the question in my mind is, okay, Steven, that's great and everything, but why does knowing the digits help me? And how do I translate that to numbers that I need to check? I guess the first thing it does help me to do is I can skip. For example, like I don't actually need to check 3-digit numbers, right? Because 3-digit numbers can't have repeated sequences. Right. I'm also, yeah, you don't sound stupid at all, Suikar. Man, you sound like you're ambitious and sounds like you have plans and goals, and I salute that, man. Wish you all the best. Go kill it. You know, it's just time in the saddle. It's reps, dude. You know, that's all it is. Lots and lots of reps. You want to be a great tackler in football, you got to tackle a lot of fucking people. You know, you want to be a great baseball player, you got to throw a baseball a lot, hit a baseball a lot. You want to be a good at writing code or reading code or understanding code or solving problems, you got to do a lot of those things, you know. So I don't think you sound stupid at all. So we don't need to check, right? Because the repeated sequences can't be 3 digits. So, or at least based on this problem's limitation. So the first thing we can do is we can rule out odd digit lengths. So we don't need to check odd length numbers. So we can say if digit, whoops, we don't need parentheses for write and go. If digit length mod 2 does not equal 0, then we just continue. So now we should only ever see even lengths. Yep, 4, 10, 6, 8, 6, 10. Okay, cool. Okay, again though, the question is how do I get to numbers, right? And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about our inputs. If we're looking at 11 to 22, right? Let's just use our notepad here. If we're looking at 11 to 22, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, then we actually don't need to check. We actually only need to get half of this value, right? We only need to say, okay, 1, does 1's repeated sequence fall in this thing? Great. We found an invalid ID. And then we need to say, does 2, but we don't need to check, you know what I mean? We don't need to look at all these. So what's the logic there? The logic is get half of the number, or half of the ID. Calculate its repeated sequence. Figure out if it falls in the range. I think? Maybe? I don't know. I guess I don't know how I get this. How do I figure out? Yeah, that doesn't actually make a sense, does it? Now I feel like I've completely lost the script. And I keep looking at the clock and I keep thinking, okay, I gotta go upstairs and get ready for work. Yeah. I do want to keep, I think I'm on to something though, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put that in my Scala draw. Because I think I'm on to something and I'd like to come back to it. I don't know if I'll get it done before we actually solve part 2, but I would like to put that there. And then also let's add a note here that's like somehow we should be able to translate the range's number of digits and the we should be able to translate the range's number of digits into potential range's number of digits and the range bounds into min and max seeds. Right? We should be able to say, hey, here's the bounds of what we can possibly have. Does our sequence fall in that? And then check if the sequence for the ID is in there. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. When I write that, it doesn't make any sense. In my brain, I feel like I see a pattern, but I can't express it. Which is such a wonderful place to be. Alright, that was fun though. I'm glad we solved part 1, although it took me way longer than it should have had because of fucking white space. White space strikes again. Alright, y'all. Who's here? We got 37 people here. Awesome. Good group. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, keeping me company, sticking with me through all my ups and downs of this Advent of Code journey. I will be continuing to do this all December. That's my plan, or at least the first 24 days of December, is to do one part of one problem from Advent of Code. And if I solve it before the end of the stream, we'll do something else. But if I don't solve it, then we'll come back and pick it up the next day. I have to run to work because I still do have a day job. I gotta go upstairs, see my family, um, get them off to school, and then I gotta start work. So, with that being said, we'll do our normal kind of housekeeping stuff. So, if you're new here and you want to come back and hang out, you can check out our schedule in the chat. I'm typically live from 4:15 a.m. Central Standard Time to about 7 o'clock. And then sometimes on the weekends, I'll stream a little bit longer just depending on what's going on, if we have family in town or kids have activities or whatnot. If you want to interact with us outside, when I say us, if you want to interact with me or anybody in chat outside of the stream, the best place to find us is our Discord. I'll put the link to that in the chat as well if you're interested in joining. We actually have a whole Advent of Code forum going on in our Discord, so people are sharing solutions, and if you want to ask for help, you can jump in there and ask for some help too if you need it, or just follow along. What else? As far as content goes for the streams, like I said, we're going to do Advent of Code, and then mixed into that, we're going to do Advent of Code in the Go programming language, and then mixed into that will probably be some C# TypeScript related projects that I would like to build. Most of my content on my channel is going to be focused on whatever it is I'm excited about or building or learning and just want to share with you guys. Basically, you can think of my stream as basically this is what Steven would normally be doing, and he just turned on a camera while he does it. So that's kind of where the stream came out of. Was like, well, I'm going to do Advent of Code, so why not stream it? That's how it started last year, and that's just kind of how I've kept it going. So that's generally what the content will be around. All right, if that sounds good to you, come back. If not, no worries. I'm gonna head upstairs. Chat, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all your help with the Advent Code problem. Thanks for the encouragement. Appreciate you sticking with me. And I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Yeah. All right. If I don't see you tomorrow morning, maybe I'll see you in the comments of a short or a video. Sweet Car, it was nice to meet you. Wish you all the best of luck in learning your JavaScript, C, and your assembly instructions. Kirk, or Kirby, if you're still here, thank you. Appreciate your help. Anonymous, as always, good to have you, and glad to hear you saw part 1 too. Filthy Potato, if you're still here, see ya. Hans the Dude, I think Hans the Dude was just stopping in. All right, guys, bye y'all. Bye chat. Bye. See you guys.